I just want to, before we get started in the information material we got this morning, I want to congratulate you and thank you so much for what you've done this past 12 months. You know, it's just been absolutely incredible what our hierarchy has done in the last 12 months. Obviously, this only represents a very small percentage of our organization, but you know, throughout the hierarchy, you've been the hottest organization in the entire company. There's 6,000 offices nationwide, and our representation is by far not the biggest, but it has been the best over this last 12 months, and I want to congratulate you before we get started. And Les and I never take it for granted the opportunity you've given us to have a chance to be somewhat of your leaders, and we appreciate that very much. And one of the things that I know as we go into the year 2007, there's a lot of things, obviously, you need to work on to get better, because, you know, to get bigger, you do need to get better. Being better does not necessarily always guarantee you'll get bigger, but to get bigger, it is good that you get there by being better, because being big does not always mean good, because there's a lot of people get big, but they don't do it the right way. What we've always done in our hierarchy, we've always done it the right way, and for the guests and for the people who are just getting started, what we've always been known as a crusading organization. This company was founded with a principle that it's not always easy to do what's right, but it's always right to do what's right. And if I could encourage you to do, you know, of all things in the year 2007, is to do things that Art Williams, the founder of the company, taught us. He said the two things you need to do is make sure you sell the dream 50% of the time, and you got to sell the crusade 50% of the time. And you know, a lot of times in today's business climate, and it's not necessarily, you know, bad, but it's so easy to get caught up in the money. And what we've always prided ourselves on, it was the crusade before it became cash. Now, if you're not money motivated, I'm telling you, you're not going to be here very long, okay? I know that also, because there's just so many frustrations and so many things you have to go through to be successful in Primerica, that if you're not money motivated, eventually the crusade, you'll wear out. And let me tell you why, okay, before I launch in today. What I've seen in trying to help people, because if you think about this in our business, you only get paid if you help somebody. You can't make money at Primerica unless you help somebody. Isn't that exciting to know that you're with a kind of company that you absolutely can't make money? There's a movie out, and I would like to encourage everybody to go see it. It just started last night. It's called Blood Diamond. And the concept is almost, I kept thinking about our business and the fact that, you know, there's so many people in our industry, whether it's in loan business, whether it's the investment business, whether it's the insurance business or any other area we're in, that for them it's strictly about the money. It has nothing to do with a cause, has nothing to do with a crusade. It's strictly about the cash. It's strictly about making money. And once again, I'm not beyond making money. I'm not above making. I love making money. Les and I were paid a little over $3.5 million last year in this business. But we did not get in this business strictly to make money. Now, we got in this business to make money, but what caught my eye was I saw the crusade. I saw what we stood for. I saw what we could do for the consumer. I always said I wish I would have had a cash value life insurance policy so I could have just seen how mad it would have made me. And but there had probably been one less whole life agent around if that would have happened, and I probably would have been in prison and wouldn't have been able to continue the crusade. You see what I'm saying? But as I watched that movie last night, I thought about how, you know, so many people out there would sell their soul for $1, and that we don't have to do it for that reason. Isn't that nice? Isn't it neat to know you can make a phenomenal amount of money just by doing what's right? Now, you understand, most people simply don't make money by doing something that has any kind of significance to it. Most people make money strictly to make money. It's all about the dollar. I was having coffee this morning preparing some final touches for this meeting, and this lady came in that's a coach here in town. This guy's been a real successful coach for a long time. I've tried to recruit the guy for a number of years. And she said, my husband needs to talk to you. She said for the first time in his 28 years of coaching, he's in it just to make a check. He said he absolutely hates it. She said, the timing's right. I want him to come talk to you. And I said, you know, that's kind of a sad situation. Now, I don't really believe the guy's been there for 28 years and never only did it because of the love of the game. Most of the time, a lot of people do things they do is because they don't think they can do anything else, okay? I'm sure the guy likes what he does. But most of the time, most people get in a comfort zone, okay? Does that make sense? I know you know that. But today, what I want you to do is this, and I want you to carry this in the year 2007. If we're going to hit our goals, if we're going to really do this drive for 5 and make this thing work, we're going to have to buy into a different concepts than most people in the company are buying into. We have to separate ourselves. And I think the edge that we're going to get, one of the biggest edges we're going to get, is we have to educate ourselves and become experts in the various areas of our product diversification. Now, a lot of y'all, once again, are new here, and you will not see, a lot of people in today's society, you won't see the crusade that we necessarily had when I started 27 years ago, okay? And that's nothing right, nothing wrong, doesn't make any difference. A lot of people say, boy, I'll tell you what, y'all had it tough, this, that, and that. We didn't have it any tougher than you've got today, okay? I appreciate people saying that, and I appreciate people saying how much they appreciate us kind of blazing the path, but in reality, you guys have challenges today that we didn't have back when I started. When I started, basically everybody had whole life insurance. I mean, if you walked into a home and they owned term insurance, you thought something was weird, okay? You know, I mean, you just thought, well, what's up? There's no, how'd you learn that? You know, it was like you were blown away. If back when we started, everybody would answer their phone, okay? Because they didn't have answering phones, they didn't have cell phones, and they didn't have caller identification, so people would see if the bill collectors are calling. Everybody picked their phone up. Back when I started, there were no other network marketing organizations, nobody else. There really was nothing out there to compete against us, really, from a recruiting standpoint, okay? Now, we had a lot of tough things. We didn't have a company backing us that anybody knew. We didn't have any kind of credibility whatsoever, so you had to fight that all the time. You had so many whole life agents out there combining against you to kind of try to put you out of business. They were writing bad articles about us, putting bad things on TV, bad things on radio. It was really tough. The commissioners of all the different states were down on us at that time. They had all kinds of regulators checking us out because this was kind of a revolutionary idea. And now today it's just totally accepted. I mean, we went from being mavericks to the trendsetters. Now all the studies are being done. They come to us and say, what do you think we ought to do in the insurance industry? I met with the banking commissioner. Kurt McClellan was with me, and we met with the banking commissioner at Commander's Palace a couple of weeks ago, and they were asking us the opinions about the loan business. Isn't that something? I mean, you would never have thunked that, you know, back then. And now we are the people, you know, I know some of y'all know this, the committee has been put together to study the life insurance industry in America and across the world. And the two companies they asked to come together were Primerica and Prudential. Now, and what's funny is they're using all of Primerica's ideas and just got some spokespeople for Prudential because they got some pretty good credibility, pretty good name, but they don't have very good ideas because they've been out there screwing and tattooing the consumers for the last couple hundred years. But see, Primerica takes a stand. And back years ago, they said the two biggest fears of the insurance industry at that time was AIDS and A.L. Williams, okay? Because both of them were a pandemic. And they were nervous and concerned that if AIDS didn't get you, we would. You know what I'm saying? Well, in reality, AIDS didn't get them. Okay, that has not caused as big of a problem in the insurance industry as they thought it was. But you know what? We got them. Now, that's a good thing. It's a bad thing. We have literally driven almost half the insurance companies out of business. My dream, my goal was not to just replace policies, but my dream and my goal was to replace agents and replace companies. That's what we've actually done. We've actually run out of business thousands and thousands and thousands of agents, which is good because if you had a rabid dog running in the neighborhood, what would you want to do? You'd want to shoot them. Okay, good. You wouldn't want them out there doing and hurting people. Well, that's really what our competition was doing. They were out there hurting people, and they really did need to be run out of the business. We exposed that. You're going to hear some of those things today. Companies that tried to make blood money off of the consumers by their ignorance and by, you know, selling deceitful policies and programs to the average ordinary consumer, which really hurt families, which is really sad to think how many families have been hurt as a result of that. You know, once again, as I was watching that film last night, and I was looking at the tragedy that's not just was when that film was made, but also now when you look at some of the things being done around the world, you know, and how many genocides take place and how many, you know, entire organizations are wiped out. People, thousands and thousands of people are being killed and slaughtered, as you and I are talking today, across this world by rebel forces just going in and just killing people just to kill people. We're talking women and children, mass slaughterings. This is going on today all around the world. And the sad thing about it, we got out last night, the sad thing about it, the one company who should have the conscience to do something about it. If we truly were founded by, and if this truly is a godly country, which I debate that, but if this truly is a godly country, and if we have the resources, the power, doesn't it make sense that we're the country that goes in and tries to save, I think, different parts of the world? I think it's a moral obligation to go in and try to help other parts of the world, because the scripture says when it's within your power to do good, you're supposed to do good. And it's within our power to do good. But you know what? America doesn't do that much good. Because we got such liberal, good-for-nothing politicians, they won't take a stand. Well, look, we fought that same war in the insurance industry. See, you're going to see today, you're going to hear testimony, you're going to see today that the insurance industry deliberately screwed and took advantage of the American consumers. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was blood money. They knew they were taking advantage of consumers. They knew they were selling bogus policies. They knew they were raping and pillaging the American consumer. And yet the politicians sat there and did nothing about it because their pockets were being lined. Or there was so many lobbyists. And after, you know, several of y'all have been with me down to the Senate, and I've had to, you know, go to New York, and I've had to go to Atlanta and do different things in politics because of what's taken place. And it's absolutely repulsive to deal with those people, to think about what they don't stand for anything. It's unbelievable. They will sell their soul, not all of them, but a lot of them in the political arena will sell their soul for a buck. And the insurance industry controls 67% of the world's wealth, directly or indirectly. So there's so much money in the insurance industry. If you think like the video last night, the film last night was talking about diamonds. The diamond industry is nothing compared to the insurance industry. And if you think that there's politics in other areas, you can't even comprehend some of the things we went through in the political arena when it came to this business. And when we were starting to try to step on toes and do some exposures of the insurance industry, they came together and they raised all their money, and they went out there and they lobbied with senators and people in the commissioner's office to try to shut us down and try to stop us. Now, you'll hear this today. In the most powerful industry in the world, we were the only company at that point in time that said we believe the consumer needs to be told the truth. And the scripture says the truth shall set you free. But then Jack Nicholson says what? He said what in the movie? You can't handle the truth. And most people see the consumer could handle the truth, but the insurance companies couldn't handle the truth, and the insurance agents didn't want to handle the truth. So you know what they did? They stuck their head in the sand year after year after year. They said bad things about us rather than competing with us, rather than just saying, well, let's look and see if these people are telling the truth. Maybe there's some validity of what these people are saying. They didn't do that. What they did was they continued to fight against us with antiquated products, and what happened was their reluctance to change destroyed them. Isn't that exciting? I mean, here's what they try to do. They try to pass, like when I started, different than what you guys got right now. We got this back in Texas right now. I mean, in Alabama, and we also have this over in Georgia. But when I started, we had temporary license, which meant if we recruited you, we could have you on the street selling within 7 days. You could be making commissions with a check, with a license within 7 days, as long as you're with an agent, etc. Then you could go by yourself, actually. And so what they did was they passed laws, said you had to have a certain amount of hours before you go out there and take a test. Now, what was that designed to do? It was designed to curb and slow down us recruiting massive amounts of people, because when you recruit massive amounts of people, you can go out there and do some damage across that kid's table, and you can expose them on a very rapid basis. That makes sense? So if they could slow us down from licensing people, then what that would do is it'd slow us down from going out there and spreading the gospel, spreading the truth. You see what I'm saying? But that backfired on them, because guess what they had to do? They had to do the same thing. So what happened was they didn't understand we weren't recruiting bloodthirsty people like they do. We weren't recruiting just based on bucks like they do. We were recruiting crusaders. See, they didn't understand that. They're a different breed of cat, them and us. So they were recruiting people just strictly to make money, and if they didn't make money right away, what happened to their agents? They quit. Whereas our agents, if they didn't make money right away, like some of y'all, you've taken your test 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 times, 18, 20 times. And it doesn't deter you, because you're not just in this for the money. You're in this because it's a crusade. You're in this to right a wrong and to make a difference in people's lives. But see, that wasn't the kind of people they attracted. You need to be proud of that. we didn't attract the same kind of people as they attracted. And Art Williams, the founder of the company, you know what he'd say? He had a great tape. He said, you line all of our people up on one side, and he said, you line all their people up on the other side. He said, you will see no comparison to the quality of people we recruit and the quality of people they recruit, because basically any kind of person that would give up a full-time job and go out there and sell life insurance for a living was basically scumbags. You know, kind of the bottom of the barrel type people. And most of these companies go out there and put these agents on draw just to make a few bucks. They go through their market, and all of a sudden when those guys don't make it, they're on the street doing something else, right? Now, do we go through people's market? Absolutely. But you think how we do it. We do it in a way to build you a business. It's a whole different thing. We don't just go through your market to milk your market. We go through your market to build you and teach you how to become an agent and teach you how to stay in business. See, it's a whole different mindset. So then they start passing fees, charging different fees and all different things. But once again, they didn't understand our philosophy. We recruited part-timers. So if you did or didn't make money with us, if you had to put up some fees or this, that's okay, because you still had a full-time job. They didn't understand. We truly broke the code. And as times went on and the industry started getting smaller and we started getting bigger, everything that Art said came to fruition. He said that when we were small, they used to rub our nose in it. He said, now we're not small. We're big. We've grown up. We've gotten stronger. And if there's anybody's nose going to get rubbed in it, it ain't going to be ours. It's going to be theirs. And now they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth. There's less than a third of the agents out there, the companies out there, and there's less than half of the agents. And right now in America, out of every 2 agents that get licensed, one of them is a Primerica financial service agent. In the largest industry in the world, we're the most powerful voice in the world. Now, with that said and done, here's the challenge that you have that we didn't have. See, in reality, what we did was relatively easy. I mean, I'd like to be able to tell you, boy, we were unbelievably tough. Now, we were from a standpoint of having to put up, because some of y'all, as soon as they had said something bad about you, you'd have been a weenie and you'd have left, okay? Because you got this prima donna kind of attitude, and you couldn't handle that, okay? But the other side is this. All we basically had to do, and I'm going to go through a lot of things this morning, but all we really had to do was this. We used to laugh about this. It was almost like a farmer who would sit around and watch another farmer plant their crop, fertilize, water, make sure it got proper sun, pull the weeds, watch the crop grow, and we'd come over there at nighttime and harvest it. We let them do all the work we had harvested. We were basically in the replacement business. They would go out and they would sell a whole life policy to a consumer, which is a big screw job. If you were at my meeting a couple of weeks ago, and by the way, I want to thank Becky Coward again for instigating these type of things and encouraging me to do these training sessions on life insurance. And I'm going to do a recap in about another 2 or 3 weeks where we take a Saturday, I just do a total recap and kind of combine everything we did that 2 or 3 Saturdays ago on whole life, and what I'm going to do today on universal life and variable life, kind of combine that together so you can have a recap and do that, put that out to you so you can see it again, because I think repetition's the mother of learning. And but today, you don't have the same amount of replacement. Back then, our business was about 75 to 80% replacement, which you just went in there and they were spending a certain amount of money. They had a certain amount of life insurance, and you go in there and say, we can do this for a lot less. Well, in reality, you didn't have to be much of a salesman. And once again, I'm not trying to put us down and not let you think that it wasn't tough, because you don't have all the political pressure we had back then, but you got a different challenge. Does that make sense to you? You really do. So we really have to be pretty good. We had to be pretty tough. You got to be pretty good. You don't have to be as tough as we had to be, but you do have to be good. Does that make sense to you? You have to know what you're doing. You still have to know what the competition's doing, but more importantly today, you got to know what you're doing, okay? So we got to raise up a whole different group of agents today than we did back then. Does that make sense? Let me give you the best analogy and I'll get launched into this thing. If you look at our military today, one of the biggest challenges they're having in Iraq right now and in different parts of the world is that the competition, and a good way to relate it to this is, how many of y'all are aware that the United States got whipped the last time in basketball in the World Games, okay? I had a chance to play in the World Games in 1973, I think it was, 74 or something like that. I don't know what year it was, 74, 75, something, before most of y'all were born. And back then they would take AAU guys. I mean, they didn't take the pros and things like that. They wouldn't take a lot. You take some of your college guys, would take AAU college guys like that, and you go play, okay? And you could probably whip them. But what's happened to the world now? They've what? They've caught up. And now we can send our best, and sometimes the best ain't good enough. We get whipped. You understand that? See, and what America's not done is continue to think, wait a minute, we better adjust. You see what I'm saying? And so America, in the field of athletics, we thought by showing up and have USA across our chest, they were going to say, whatever, and you know, they would bow down and give us the trophy and give us the gold medals. That ain't the way it is anymore, is it? In the war, if you look at now, the terrorists don't fight the same as we used to fight it. It's not a conventional war any longer. And what's happening is they're fighting a different type of war than we're used to fighting. Now, does that mean we can't fight it? We can fight it, but what do we got to be willing to do? Change. We got to be willing to change. The insurance industry never was willing to change. The loan industry, you're finding that out because we're in that business. They're not willing to change. The investment business is not willing to change. The financial service arena overall is not willing to change. And you know why? Because of the old blue bloods that sit up in the ivory towers and just want to count their cash and not really make adjustments. Does that make sense to you? And so where you're at today is you're in a different, it's a different field. It's a different playing ground today than it was when we started. Does that make sense? So you got to be better. You got to be more sophisticated. Now listen, you got to get this down now, because if you think you can play, okay, by the same rules that we played by, I'm going to have to ask you all a favor. Nobody sit back at those tables, okay? So if you got the chairs, or what are you going to do? Just move them up. If not, there's empty chairs up there, but we've got to make sure nobody sits back in those chairs back here and stuff, okay? If you think you can play by the same rules that we did, and if you're a vice president sitting here and manager sitting here, okay, and you've got downlines and you're not making the adjustments and you're not raising your sense of knowledge, your team is going to get wiped out. So you're going to have to get up to date. Does that make sense with everybody? Okay. Now, with that said, let me get into this, what we're going to cover today. I'm really excited about this. Best way to start this off is it cold in here, some of y'all? I look at y'all look cold to me, and you're making me cold by looking at y'all. Who is not cold? Raise your hand. Okay, all y'all going to get promoted, you know that. Okay, but Dick, if you want to adjust it a little bit, go ahead and do that. Okay, first of all, let's start off with this. Let's start off with the fact, and for the purpose of for the group here today, and for the purpose of people that be listening to this on video, anything that I cover up here on the overlay, provided it's a compliant type situation, we'll get this out to you. And what we'll do is, and Michael, if you'll help me in this, we will have emailed to you everything I covered today, so that by Monday at the latest, I guess, Mike, we can do that fast, couldn't we, buddy? Okay, by Monday, and if you're not, you can call Jen up in New York and she can get that out. By Monday, we'll have all the information that you don't have in your handouts today on email. And then what I'd like to ask you to do is have emergency meetings, okay? And between now and the first of the year, put some time into this. Guys, there's too much money to be on the table for you not to know what you're doing. I mean, the amount of money in this business is absolutely insane. You know, they paid Les and I about $300,000 or $400,000 last month. You know, but and the bulk of it is in the life insurance side. And you can get all excited about securities and loans, all that kind of crap, all you want to, but the big money in this business is in life insurance. So you need to understand and learn the life insurance part of this business, okay? I mean, your bonus checks are based on what? Life insurance. Your promotions are based on what? Life insurance. You better learn the life insurance business. Now, here's what's exciting. Nobody else in America is in the insurance business. It's all ours. They laid it down. It's ours for the taking. That's how I look at it. Man, I get excited about the fact that nobody, listen to me now, nobody is in the insurance business. But you know what that means? We better learn the insurance business, because if we're going to dominate it, we better learn it. Does that make sense? They're not going to go out there and say, oh, you're from Primerica, here's my money, here's my signature. That's not what they're going to do. You're going to have to be able to go out there and do a good job. So point number one is anything added to term insurance is good for the agent, good for the company, but it's bad for the consumer. Always remember to purchase pure insurance, which is term insurance, okay? And any time, and you need to make sure the consumer understands this, and here's another rule of thumb. If it doesn't say Primerica Financial Services on there, if it doesn't say Primerica Life, it's not the right life insurance policy. Now, you got to have that mindset. Please write that down. If it doesn't say Primerica Life, it is not the right kind of life insurance. If it says Prudential Life, even if it says term, if it says, State Farm, if it says term, I don't give a flying stink. If it doesn't say Primerica, it's definitely not the right kind, and here's why. Now listen to me, you need to get this down. Your competition still would like to sell whole life, universal life. They would still like to sell that. If they can get by with it, they're going to do it. So one of the tricks of the trade is this. And then, like a lot of y'all say, well, I know somebody, they got term insurance. Look, pick it up anyhow, and let's review it. By the way, I want to announce today, too, by the way, there's two by the ways, is that over the next 90 days, what we're going to do is we're going to have what's called a life hotline. And that life hotline will be designed that you can call into me. You can send to me any kind of life insurance policy that you pick up. If there's any kind of whole life, universal adjustable life, variable life, any kind of life insurance you pick up that's not a term policy, you can do that just by competing, but I'll show you how to do that today too. But any kind of thing like that you can't figure out, let's say you're having some struggles with this type of policy, you can't figure it out. You send it to me, within 24 to 78 hours, I'll have you a game plan put together for you to go back and crush that thing. So if you're struggling with anything in the next 90 days, all you got to do is put it together, send it to me, email it, fax it to me, whatever you want to do. I'll put together a game plan, send it back to you, and I'll personally make sure you close that thing. Does that make sense? Now, if you miss it after me giving it to you, shame on you. Okay, but I'll put a game plan together for you if you can't get one together for you to understand yourself. Make sense? So we're going to have a hotline, so the next 90 days we can make sure you're up to snuff on all this stuff, okay? So if it doesn't say Primerica Life, say, well, Bill, how can you say if it doesn't say Primerica Life, it's a wrong type product? Because here's what they teach their agents to do. Most of your companies will teach their agents if they sell term insurance. By the way, they're only allowed to sell a certain amount of term insurance normally anyhow. But if they sell term insurance, one of their employees is to make sure within the next few years they go back to that consumer and start the conversion phases. So let's say they sell one of your friends. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say they sell one of your friends a marker. Oh, here it is. Let's say they sell one of your friends a $100,000 life insurance policy, and I know one company in particular teaches their agents to do this. They say if you could sell $100,000 term policies this year, then now you're off and running. So they try to go out there and just sell $100,000 term, which is relatively cheap. Would you agree? I mean, $100,000 term. And then we're talking about annual renewable term, which is relatively cheap. I'll hit that in a second. Then what they do is they go back and say, now what you want to do is you want to convert $10,000 of that $100,000 policy over each year to a whole life. So you go back to the consumer and say, listen, you got a $100,000 term, you haven't been spending much money, but this policy here does not build up any kind of cash value. So what we need to do is convert this. Now you got $90,000 of term, and you got $10,000 worth of whole life to start building your cash value. And you start convincing them, if we do this over the next 10 years, by the next 10 years, you'll have now $100,000 worth of what? Whole life, and you'll have some cash in there, and instead of renting your house, you'll now what? Own your house, right? Well, the answer should be, I'd rather what? Rent my insurance and own my cash. But that's not how they do it. See, they think you ought to own your insurance and rent your cash. They're just screwing the consumer. But that's the ploy. So don't think just because you pick up a term policy, you come across a term policy, that the agent did the right thing. They did not necessarily do the right thing. Trust me on that. That's just a ploy to basically go back and get those clients to start buying whole. Because if they could have sold them whole life, trust me, they'd have sold them whole life. They could have sold them universal life, they'd have sold them universal life. Okay? So whatever they have, you make sure you pick it up. Now, just a quick review before we launch into this other part. If you remember what we talked about the first day we met, and we went through this, there's three types of term. One is decrease in term, which is, once again, just a quick review. One is decrease in term, and decrease in term, if you remember, has what? What does the premiums do? Okay, the premiums stay level. Now, once again, this is a review, so if you weren't there, then this is relatively new for you. But can you all see this back in the back? You can? Good. Okay, so the premiums are level. So what that means is that whatever you're paying up front, let's say you're paying $100 a month up front, you're going to be paying the same amount of money if you buy at age 30. You're going to be paying the same amount of money at age 60. Same amount of premium. But the face amount In other words, the coverage will do what? Decrease. So it starts off, say, here and goes to here. So let's say it starts off at $100,000 in coverage. The premium would be $100 a month. It stays the same, but it's going to decrease over the next 30 years. So it's really easy mathematically. You just divide 30 into 100, and so that policy decreases about $3,333 per what? Per year. Okay? So you've got this thing. What am I? Did I screw that up? No, I got it right. Okay. So you got me on this? Okay, so it's a 30-year decrease in term. $100,000 worth of face amount, and it's going to decrease that much. So over about 10 years, say at about age 40, how much will that policy have decreased? About $33,000 down. So it's going to be worth about $66,000 right there. How about in the next 10 years? Now it's going to be down to about $33,000. So at age 60, what's going to happen to it? It's down to nothing. You see what I'm saying? So you can have a 10-year decrease in term. You can have a 40-year decrease in term. You can have a decrease in term to age 100. And how do you figure out how much is decreasing? All you got to do is figure out how long the period of time is, and divide that into the face amount. You got me? That's a formula. So that's decreasing term. Now, what would be a good use of decreasing term? A mortgage. A mortgage would be a good use of decreasing term. So let's say I had a mortgage going to last 30 years. Then I'll buy a 30-year decreasing term, and as my mortgage decreases, my life insurance decreases. Now, here's the good news. You can buy level term with us cheaper than you can most decreasing terms out there in the marketplace. So even if they have, so you always ask them, do you have a mortgage cancellation policy? Do you have any kind of insurance that if you die, they will pay off your mortgage? If they say yes, pick it up, review it, because most of the time you can replace that with a cheaper level term policy. Now, if you were given a choice, would you rather have level term or a decrease in term? Level term, especially if it's going to be less expensive, okay? So always pick that up, okay? A lot of times, by the way, your friends will think they've got a mortgage cancellation. It's a whole life policy. Now, that's also important to remember, because when we get to the whole life part, remember what whole life's made up of? It's actually made up of decreasing term. Okay, so remember now that decreasing term is part of the whole life, because all life insurance is what? Term insurance. There's no anything else is just added to it. So let's look at annual renewable term. All right? Now, once you understand these philosophies, you'll start to understand how easy it is to understand whole life and universal life, variable life. Annual renewable term says this: the premium, what you're paying for it, is going to stay level. Is that right? No. What's it going to do? It's going to increase. Okay? Annual renewable term. Okay? Term meaning a term, a period of time. Okay? A period of time. So the face amount, so let's say it's $100, starts off at $100. It's not going to stay at $100. It's going to continue to increase. Okay? Each year it increases. Okay? The premium increases. The face amount, though, stays level. Everybody with me? Okay, so here's what it looks like. And remember this, because you'll see this again in the graphs when we go through universal life, variable life. Let's say it's $100,000 worth of coverage. That $100,000 worth of coverage is going to stay level. It will never change. But it's the premium that starts going up. So it's going to go to $100, maybe $110. Then it goes to maybe $120, maybe $130, $150, $160. The premium keeps going up. Got me? But the coverage stays the same. Everybody with me? Okay, now, why is that? Well, let's go back to see why this was. At age 30, if you'd write this down, just a quick review, it's what, at any age, it's called mortality. Mortality is strictly how many people out of 100 die at your age each year. Mortality. How many people out of 100 die at your age each year? So let's say Carlos is 27. So would you agree with me, mortality-wise, there's not much risk of a person age 27 dying. Would you agree with me on that? So they have what's called mortality tables. Now you need to remember this because it's in all your policies. There's a mortality table. And that table is like a weight table, age table, whatever it is. It says how many, it's statistics is all it is. Would you agree with that people die less today than they did in 1958? I had polio in 1957. The polio vaccine was invented in 1951. People don't die or get crippled today from polio like they did back then. You see what I'm saying? Things have changed. A lot of your current life insurance policies are based on 1958 mortalities. Even some of the most recent ones are based on 1980. Well, today is the year 2007, basically. Do people die 27 years now? It's been since 1980. Are they dying at a less rate? Yes. The life expectancy is a lot longer. Makes sense to you? So if they have old mortality tables, the cost is going to be a lot higher. So right away you know if they got old mortality tables, they're really getting screwed. All right? Now, as a person gets older, what happens to the chance of them dying? It increases. Do all companies have the same risk? Do they? Yes, you need to understand this when you start figuring out life insurance. Everybody has the same risk. All companies do. Okay? So when they figure these rates out, they're figuring out based on your age, based on a person dying. Percentage of people dying at your age, all right? So you'll see how this works. So that's why you see as a person ages, either they got to raise the premium, right? You got me? Compensate for the risk. Or they got to lower the what? Face amount. Very good. Everybody got me? Everybody with me? Okay. Now, if you look at, and this is the two types of insurance you'll need to remember when we cover in just a second universal life and variable life. Level term is simply this. All you're doing with level term is instead of having, you got the face amount benefit that stays level, but then what you've done is you've taken the premium and you get a level premium for a longer period of time than just 1 year. Okay, annual noble term, ART, annual noble term, level premium, you can go a 5-year term, so it lasts you for how many years? 5 years. You got to let the football guys get some answers. Okay, so if they're age 30, that lasts you age 35, and then all of a sudden, what would go up? The premium would go up. So let's say here it's about $125 a month. Maybe here it jumps to $150 a month, and will last to age 40, then jump again from age 40 to 45, and the premium might go up to $175 a month. You see what I'm saying? Then you can have a 10-year level. You can have a 20-year level. You know, like us, we got 30, and we got 35-year level. Now, what are they doing when they have level term? All they're doing is this. See the annual noble term cost? What's it going to do every year? Going up. All they're doing when they have a level term, us included, we've got a 35-year level term. Okay, so let's take a 30-year-old person. A 30-year-old person, a 35-year level term would last them there how old? 65, okay? So what they've done is they just take the annual renewable term basically, which is based on what? What's it called? Mortality. How many people die at your age per year? And they say, what is it for a person age 30? And what is it a person for age 40? 50, 60, 65. And they just average it out and give you a discount. Okay, now it's important you get this down because you need to be able to explain your product. So anytime there's a level term, all they're doing is basically averaging over the years the cost of the insurance and then giving you a discount for buying it for that period of time. Okay? Everybody got me? Now, how many of y'all remember what we talked about as far, and it's important you understand this because you get in a competitive situation. Does term insurance build up any kind of cash value? You're dead wrong. Absolutely wrong. Think about it logically. And why does cash value build up, why does whole life build up cash value? Because they're overcharging you when? In the beginning years. So if we're buying low-cost term insurance over a 35-year period of time, at 30 years old, what's a person paying for? He's paying for what? A person age what? What did I say just a minute ago? 40, 45, 50, 60, 65, right? So you are overpaying something. So initially, are you paying more than you should be paying at age 30 for that policy? Yeah, because you're also paying. But see, by doing it over a period of time, you're getting a discount, right? But you are paying more. So it does have an insignificant cash buildup. But what's the purpose of it? It's not like what we tell the consumer. The only purpose of it is because it's strictly based on what? What's the key word? Mortality. Doesn't have all the expenses involved in there. Everybody with me on that? So you need to know that so you're never caught off guard on that. Okay? If you don't understand all the details, don't worry about it. We'll get to that later. Now, let's shift then and look at a whole life policy just as a quick review. In a whole life policy, what a whole life policy is made up of, and you'll see, and if you don't, you probably don't have this in your handouts, do you? Okay, don't worry about it. We'll get this downloaded because you ought to use this in your training classes. What you're looking at with a whole life policy, see these two triangles up here? Okay. Now, if you look at the two triangles, the top triangle, what's happening to it? Yeah, it's getting smaller, okay? So what does that look like it's doing? It's decreasing. Okay, so that's the percent, that's the portion. So let's say this is A, and this down at the bottom is B. What's happening to the bottom part? It's increasing, okay? So the top part is the insurance, just write this, it's the insurance company's risk. And so what kind of insurance is that? It's decreasing term. So what kind of insurance? Remember I said all insurance is what? Term insurance. And all you have when you have a whole life or universal life or a variable life is some form of term insurance that the insurance company's done what? Added something to it. Now we said anytime you add to it, it's good for who? Agent. It's good for who? But it's not good for who? Okay, and who we in business to help? The consumer. Okay, good. Now you got it. So you have the insurance company's risk, which is made up of decrease in term. Okay, and then you have the bottom part, which is called the consumer risk. Okay, that's called the cash surrender value, some kind of cash value. Okay, building up. So what is the only legal purpose? It's important you get this verbiage. What is the only legal purpose of this cash value growing inside that policy? What's the only legal purpose? What's it do? What's the purpose of it? Anybody? Kurt, keep the face amount level. Because if you didn't have this cash value attached to it, look here. If you would take away the cash value portion, here's the cash surrender value portion. If you would separate the two, and you don't have this, would this face amount still be 100,000 in this example? No, because what's the top triangle? What is that? Decrease in term. So if you're age 30, 50, 65, and 100, what would happen to this insurance based on what we know about decrease in term? It would decrease, right? So let's look at this. Here's what's happening. Every time, now watch, at age 30, if I start off with, say, 100,000 face amount, so it's 100,000 up here. Okay, it's going to stay that way all the way to 100. Okay, how much cash do I have in the policy the first couple of years probably? Probably nothing, okay? So the cash value is what? 0. So what is the net death benefit? The net death benefit, meaning the combination of the two, is how much? Okay, is 100,000 net death benefit, excuse me, meaning the face amount minus the cash value, okay? So that's a net death benefit. So let's say at age 50, I've got, say, $20,000 worth of cash value inside my policy. Now, once again, going back to this, why did I have $20,000 of cash value? Why? Anybody know? Help me out. They overcharged me. See, this $20,000 is not an investment. This $20,000 is an overcharge, and what's happened is, remember what we're paying for? Are we paying for just a person age 30? No, we're paying for a person what? 50, 65, and 100, but I've got decreasing term. It's decreasing term. Now, what's happened is by age 50, the amount of premium I'm paying, let's say it's $1,000 a year, is not paying any longer for $100,000 worth of coverage. I got $100,000 coverage, but how much cash value is in there? $20,000. So what's the net death benefit? 80. So what's happening to my insurance? Okay, the insurance, true insurance, the insurance company's risk, the true insurance is down to 80 now. What's offsetting it to keep it at level? My cash value. So what are they starting to do with the risk? Shift and transfer. Very good. Okay, you got me on this? Okay, now, the cash that's growing inside that policy, does anybody remember who figures that out? Anybody remember the name? Actuaries. And there's what's called an actuary. It's an actuarial department. Every company has it. And it's just a mathematical corporation that everybody has. And it says how much of this premium that would normally pay for decrease in term, will we have to start overcharging this person to put in his cash value? So let's say it might be $600 for the decrease in term insurance. What's going to happen to the premium that decrease in term? Help me out. Come on now, don't lose with me today. It's going to stay the same. So I've got an extra $400 that the actuaries have figured out that if we overcharge this person $400, and if we can get a certain rate of return on it, that will grow, watch now, at the same rate, very important, at the same rate, that this thing decreases by $20,000, I'll have what in my policy? $20,000 cash value. So they got it mathematically figured out. Now here's what the Federal Trade Commission says. Actuarially, mathematically, thank you very much, brother, the average rate of return this cash value has to grow at is 1.3 to 4% for that to stay at the same amount for that to grow at the same amount that decrease in term is decreasing. Everybody got me? So what kind of rate of return do I get on my money those 20 years? About 1.3 to 4%. Everybody got me? Now you're going to see this today using closing techniques that's not a good deal. Anybody remember the rule of 72? Okay, remember that now. In the first couple years, how much cash did I have? So in the first 5 or 10 years is actually a negative 10 to 20% rate of return. It's only on the lifetime of the policy that it averages 1.3 to 4%. Here's the kicker. The average person doesn't even keep their policy 10 years. So they're not even back to 0.0 before they lapse it out. The average person does not even keep their policy 10 years, a cash value policy. So don't let some scumbag agent tell you, oh yeah, well they don't keep their insurance, they don't keep term insurance. They don't keep whole life either. People don't keep a lot of it. They don't even keep their dadgum partner. Okay? Now, if they keep paying their premium, right? Part of it's going toward what? The decrease in term element. Part of it's going where? Cash value. The purpose of cash value is to offset what? The decrease in amount of life. Now listen, this is not a time to daydream. You got to get focused today. So if you have any questions, slap yourself, keep yourself alert, right? Because the easy way is to drift right here. And then you will have wasted your time. So at 65, face amount's what? 100,000. So let's say the cash value now is about 65,000 right here. So what's the net death benefit? About 35,000. See what's happening to your coverage? Everybody with me? Okay, and at age 100, face amount 100,000, cash value now 100,000, net death benefit 0. See what's happened? That's the decrease in term. They're just shifting the risk from them to you, and if you die, you don't get both, you get either or, right? So you become the insurance company. That's how whole life works. Okay? If you separate the two, what would you have? Decrease in term. So therefore, if I take the cash out of my policy, do I still have 100,000? No, it's 100,000 less what? What I took out. So what if I took my 20,000 out? How much coverage do I have? Right there, the net debt. What if I took my 65,000 out? What do I have? 35. Everybody got me? Okay, so you're paying for 3, but how many can you exercise at one time? 1. We're going to cover that in a minute with a closing technique I'm going to show you how to use. Okay, you got me? It'll help you. You'll learn to read the policies much faster by knowing those little things. So what I would do is I would have some copies of this, and I would probably use that with their policies. Training purposes only, but I would do that, okay? So when I pick up a whole life policy, I'd be able to plug those numbers in real fast for the consumer to see, hey, I didn't understand that's how it works. Well, that's how it works. And you can use their numbers in a form. Pictures are a lot easier to understand. Does that make sense? Okay, so I would do that. Now, let's look at this. Over the years, what took place was the insurance industry. Now, this is interesting. The insurance industry over the years started realizing that the consumers are becoming more and more aware of the interest rates that they could get on their money. Okay? Now, this is important. What did we just say the average rate of return is on that whole life policy? 1.3 to 4%. Now, this is really important you understand where that information came from. Obviously, companies like us, there was other companies out there at the time, companies like Kemper, Fireman's Fund. There's some pretty big players that started talking about how big of a screw job that kind of life insurance was. But one of the biggest things that helped us out was the insurance industry started becoming investigated by the Federal Trade Commission. Okay, now write that down, FTC. The Federal Trade Commission came out and started saying some things. We're going to be able to provide you with a lot of this information. Your RVP should have it. But basically what the Federal Trade Commission said in a 1979 release, and remember, we were founded in 1977. So they came out, and this release says, it says that, he says, the savings element of such a retirement plan is between 1% and 2% return, with well below the current rate of inflation. And it goes on and talks about, it says the aggregate consumer losses due to the first year lapses alone was $200 million just in 1977. Then it goes on and says the staff reported an outgrowth of investigation began in 1976 when the commissioner authorized his staff to determine the adequate cost information that was being provided to the prospective life insurance purchasers. And it goes on and said that basically the study shows that the consumers had no idea what they were buying and had no idea how bad it was. So do you think we used that when we got started? That's about the only third-party piece of material we had. But that was one of the first things that exposed the insurance industry. Now think about this. So here you had Primerica and companies like us out there talking about buy term and invest the difference. Now you had the Federal Trade Commission come out with a scathing report blasting the competition. The problem is the competition didn't want to admit they were wrong. But Senator Perchek, what he said was, he said, look, this is the way it is. Okay, now what we're going to show you right now is the video, and you're going to hear him talking about this, and you're going to see that the insurance industry turned a deaf ear, refused to answer any questions, refused to let them investigate them, didn't even show up for hearings. They were so arrogant, they wouldn't even show up. And so I want you to enjoy this, and hopefully you'll get a little feeling of what took place, and this is a pretty neat little video. I think you'll have a lot of fun watching this, okay? All right?